So early in the days when I was started out at art school studying computers, I thought I would use software to make drawing tools that would automate the tedious, repetitive, task of making lines. I designed drawing tools that would add hatch marks and perpendicular marks to lines as I went. Mm-hmm. And one thing I found out was that drawing lines individually is not really tedious. It's actually, every little line can have its own nuance. The other thing was that the systematic approach that was revealed in the software that came out by drawing lines with computer showed me arrangements of marks that I wouldn't have come to necessarily if I'd have just been sketching, from life. And so these kind of lines with the hatch and lines in the hatch like this started as computer tools and then became a vocabulary for hand drawing, copying that way. So it was on paper, and then it was in computer, and now it's back on the pieces again. They became something that became kind of a signature because I arrived at them through that algorithmic experimentation.
And to some extent, the mark itself has a reference, but you've added now color, which clearly leads us to where you want us to go. So these are more earth and vegetative elements. Right. More sort of land and vegetative elements. This is more sort of darker green to brown, more earth, and then water elements.
Yeah, sky and water.
So it's continuing with the theme with many of the other pieces in the show where it's all relating to landscape and earth, but this is just more reductive, on a bit more abstracted, on a cleaner, more negative space.
Ground. I think leaving the white emphasizes the sculptural aspects, the distance aspects between them.
Definitely.
And then I can play games on the sides where they lean, and I can work on the edges a little more. And it is reductive. So as a diagram, the lines have a certain origin, their color has a certain origin, their position on the sculpture has a certain origin, and then the shapes of the sculpture itself have a certain origin, and they can kind of
close up. You can't see it in the camera, obviously up here, but when you look at it, I noticed in these ledges. Yeah. Is that just residue from the process, or did you particularly create like this colored shadow line?
Well, it appeared, and I thought that makes sense.
Well, it also doubly works because this little bit of reflectivity is a light blue.
Oh, yeah.
And then over here, a little bit of green. So when I got closer to it, because I was wondering where was that coming from, it's like a little bit of a light. But no, it's a great effect, actually.
Yeah, I like to play the games with it because you get a shadow. You get a depth effect by shadow, and you get a depth effect by perspective, and you get a depth effect by the line, the way the line moves, and they don't always agree. Right. So it's really fun to try to trick the mind.
But this, just from the camera, people don't realize, this actually is shaped. So it is three-dimensional. Yeah. These really are sort of overlapping.
Yeah, you get real shadows, you get kind of fake shadows, and you get indications of perspective in there as well.
Yeah, as I said, there are a couple of other pieces like this, so very interesting, in a different sort of, it's a nice breadth of palette you've created here, and we'll see others where they're much, much more painterly and much more in-depth in terms of, the addition. And then this is just sort of a nice clean.
Yeah, at the time when I was doing the lines, I was very into a drawing as being a diagram. So reducing it that way kind of emphasizes that.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And, Leonardo's big piece was a diagram itself.
That's a very good point. Yes, that's also.
And I felt like how do you get drawing that? I really wanted to try to break the. Idea to myself, because I drew landscapes and portraits and things like that really early on, which is kind of in the tradition of art and drawing. And when you just think about drawing as drawing something, I wonder, how can I do drawing that's outside of what I normally would think of as a drawing? And one way was the diagram.
Yeah, and the effect still comes true, as I said, because you it's very referential in and of itself, but then the color enhances that. But yeah, what you're getting away from is using value to create volume or further suggest some dimensionality. And this is definitely more diagrammatic. And the Da Vinci piece you're referring to is the Universal Man.
Yeah, the Vitruvian Man was a diagram.
Correct. That's a good point. So again, it's extending that more linear, just single movement stroke of drawing.
Yeah, and the diagrams seem to be appropriate as a form for informational art, which is where that algorithmic art was coming from. It seemed like that was a good way to think about it. Well, any drawing is really at its base a diagram of the position of the hand and the motion of the hand, anyway, in its real reduced state, right? That's a diagram of where my hand went.
Residue, as it were.
Yeah. the path of the hand.
The path of the hand. There you go. No, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.